Record is in progress. So guys, thank you very much for being here, for coming and joining us for our first Connecting Minds of the year. And tonight we have the privilege to watch the talk of Luana Garbin, who is also a mentor at Mind Idioms. I feel like a TV show host. So Luana, my dear, please do the honors and introduce the talk and yourself, and the floor is yours.
All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. For those of you who don't know me, I am Luana. I started with Ali and Laizi this month. And at the moment, I'm doing my PhD, and I'm on my third year of my PhD. And I am a discourse analyst. In my master's, I worked with critical discourse analysis. So, and I work in the area of linguistics. So the girls invited me to talk a little bit about my research, what I've been studying, and I accepted. So before I start my presentation, I would like to tell you a little bit what a critical discourse analyst does. So pretty much, I am part of a group of discourse analysts. My advisor works with critical discourse analysis, most specifically legal texts. So what do? We take texts, our data, our corpus, they are pretty much texts, and we dissecate that text. We take information from that text, from a specific text, based on a specific framework. We use grammar to analyze how this text is being manipulated. We use grammar to know whether someone is lying or not, whether there is a concrete intention in doing what a text is saying it's going to do. So a discourse analyst takes many elements of the text, combines, and do the analysis. So there are many ways and many genres in which we can conduct analysis. My advisor, she conducts analysis in legal discourses. My other colleague, he conducts analysis in health discourses. So he takes medical discourses and goes through the text. And I am in charge of political texts. So since my master's, I've been analyzing political discourses. And more specifically, I am interested in the gender connections with political discourses. So in my master's, I worked with the presidential programs of the elections in 2018. And I wasn't really sure of what to do in my PhD, but then we had the results of the election. We have the president we have today, and I could not ignore that. So I chose to work with Bolsonaro's discourses. And in the very beginning of my PhD, the pandemic started. So I could not ignore these both factors. So I combined both. So I work with Jair Bolsonaro's discourses during the first year of the pandemic. This is not what I'm going to present to you today, because my research is still on baby steps, but I'm going to present to you a review of literature of what I've been doing so far. So I'm not going to present to you my analysis because I don't have it yet. And I'm supposed to do my qualification in July of this year. So I hope to have further results by then. So for today, I'm going to present you key concepts of what I'm doing. And I hope it makes sense to all of you what I'm going to present now. And then we can talk a little bit about it at the end of my presentation. So I'm going to start presenting now. And I will not be able to see you anymore. I will just see my screen. So if there's any problem, or if you can't hear me, someone please speak, because I will not be seeing the chat or you, okay? All right. Can you all see it? My screen? Yeah? All right, let me.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Let me go full screen. All right. Is it full screen? Can you all see it?
Not yet. Still small.
Yeah, it's not in presentation mode yet.
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna have to do another way.
We can read it though.
Yeah. All right. But then, okay, I will let this way so I can see you as well. All right. Is it okay? Yeah. All right. So everybody, the title of my presentation today is The Relations of Gender and Populism During the COVID-19 Pandemic in Brazil. All right. So PPGI is my program at UFSC. CAPES is the institution responsible for my scholarship. And Professor Débora de Carvalho Figueiredo is my advisor. All right, so I organized this presentation in 4 steps, 4 groups, basically. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about what is populism and a few key concepts of what is this theory. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about gender and how the pandemic scenario relates to gender issues and to populism as well. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Brazilian political scenario and how all of these is connected. And then I'm going to talk about my what I intend to do with my research in the future. So a little bit of what I intend to do. All right. So the term populism comes from popularis. So it means favoring the people. So whoever is in charge of the people needs to be representing these people, this majority group. Populism can be studied as an ideology, a discursive style, and a form of political mobilization. In my research, I am more interested these 3 combined, but I look at it as a form of political mobilization. So how does government, how does a political figure uses populism to take action, all right? But it's also an ideology at the same time, and it has some discursive styles, but I don't pay much attention to the discursive style, the grammar, all right? I just use it as a theoretical apparatus in this case. So populism needs a charismatic figure to represent the voice of the people. So what is charisma? Charisma is what relates us to people, is what makes us feel connected somehow to each other. So populism needs this charismatic figure. And this charisma can be represented through many different ways. One of the ways is being funny. Being funny is a very strong feature of charismatic populists. In Brazil, we have examples. So Vargas was one example back then in the 50s, 60s. Also, Lula was considered by some people populist president, and now Bolsonaro. Trump was also considered a charismatic, a populist figure. So they are usually these figures that are the populist politicians in this context. So how this discourse works, how does the populist discourse works? It's used through demagogy. So they basically have passionate speeches. They involve emotion of people rather than rational discourse. So they don't pay much attention to concrete facts. They try to convince people by touching their feelings. This is how populist connects to the people, by going to the connecting, by making it closer. And how does this happen? There are many ways that this can happen. One example that we had in the beginning of the pandemics, I'm going to try to always use Bolsonaro as an example because he is my topic of interest. We had one example of this emotional relationship. In the beginning of the pandemic, he trying to go to the people, even though we had the recommendations to stay away. He went to the people, not making use of masks. So he wanted to show that he was close to these people. And all of the jokes he would make during his political campaign back then in 2018 was another example of this charisma. All the jokes he made, jokes, racist jokes, xenophobic jokes, homophobic jokes, they were always masked with this charisma. So that's one of the elements that constitutes him a populist politician. All right. The term populism was coined in the 60s. So it was first used in the social studies, but then it changed to different other spheres of academic life. Political science, which is one that I adopt here, is one of the biggest today that use populism, although it was used in many other areas, even in the financial education area, it was also used. But here I'm only focusing in the social political studies and the use of the term populism. So is populism only about the right wing? No, it is not only about the right wing. Both the left and the right wing use populism to engage people. So, but there are things in common. Even though it can be used in the left and the right, there are common points that constitutes populism. So we will always see a polarization in a populist discourse. We will always find polarization from the elite and the people. So what's the elite and the people? So the elite is whoever is a minority in a group which is not being beneficialized by certain political actions, and the people is all the rest. Okay, and both these two are in opposition to each other. All right, so this is all the cause of the polarization. So some common elements in a populist ideology is opposition to immigration, celebration of the family, and an appeal to national sovereignty. So this is very strong in a populist discourse, the sense of nationalism. So usually a populist leader will always try to protect the national, whatever comes from the national. So consequently, the leader will avoid everything that comes from exterior. All right. So it's very common to find discourses against immigration when it comes to populism. So how the right-wing populism, which is the one that I am focusing on my research, they see outsiders as a threat to national instances. So for example, they have a common discourse is that immigrants are coming to our country to steal our people's job, or to steal our position, or they are coming here with their values and they are going to impact in a negative way into our own beliefs of our people. So this is a very common feature of a populist discourse. And how does a nationalist discourse work? There are these three ways. I'm going to go a little faster because it's long and sometimes I take too long to speak. So I'm going straight to the point. So here in my research, I am interested in the symbolic dimension. Not that I am ignoring the spatial dimension and the temporal dimension. They are also very important, but I am limited to a certain amount of words in my dissertation. So I'm going with symbolic dimension. So it's constructing consciousness through metaphors. So heroes, rituals, and narratives. And this is where women are found, because many times women are portrayed as the society's heroes. Why? Because they take care of everybody. So they are the symbolic, they are in this category of symbolic dimension. Everyday dimension, I'm going to pay attention as well, because this is the for real, like when does it happen? It's on the everyday dimension. In which aspects of everyday life we can see how the national identity is produced. How can we identify how all these ideologies are produced and reproduced and rooted? Because once they're rooted, it's very difficult to disconnect, to disentangle this from what people understand as a national value, as a social value. So I'm paying attention to these ones. All right, so here, I just wanted to show you some examples from abroad, some foreign examples. Because in Brazil, this is a very shallow discussion. This is still very shallow. So I had to look for literature outside, because yet nobody's writing about these three elements, about gender, populism, and the pandemic. This is very recent. This is from 2020. So we don't have much Brazilian literature. So I had to go look in other sources how at least how the discourse of gender and the populist, how they match. All right, so a few results that I could find, they are related to family. I'm going to explain later how important family is in this populist and gender relations in our society, and how important this is for the government. Family is very, very important for the government. I'm going to explain this further. So here, there's a quote by Eliot: "This tyrannical spirit wanting to play bishop and banker everywhere." So this bishop and banker is exactly what a leader, a populist leader is. So they're playing like they are in favor of the people, like they want to benefit the big group, but at the same time they are the banker. They are making a terrible use of whatever is in opposition. One example that we have here, that we had in the elections, everybody who defended, who voted for, who had left ideologies were considered petistas at the time. And why? Because they were the other part was not beneficialized by the rights. They were being ignored by the government. So this is another example of the segregation, of the polarization that I mentioned before. That is one of the most important features of populism and populist discourse. All right, so Wendy Brown is a scholar, and she talks exactly about this, the dethronement of privileges, which is what is today. She claims that today this is one of the biggest reasons of all the rage created in politics. So from the one side, there are the people who really need the help from the government, And from the other side is there are the middle class people who are not so much beneficialized by quotas, for example, affirmative actions. And this creates a sense of injustice. So for example, this is unfair. I'm not being beneficialized as you from the government, so this is unfair. So this is this is all included in the neoliberal economic policies that she calls. All right. So here it's a very important aspect that these leaders, they usually treat their own losses, for example, an individual loss, as a national loss. And this is how they convince a whole people, a whole nation, that his loss is everybody's losses. And then this is how this leader is able to engage everybody, a whole lot of people. This is how one of the aspects of how the manipulation works. So one example of the right-wing populist leader, they promise a lot. So they want to restore some values that according to them were lost in a certain moment. So Trump, for example, make America great again. In the Brexit, take back control, keep Sweden Swedish. So if you perceive there is this urge to protect what is national, and also to push back whatever is not. All right, so there's this urge to protect national. Okay. All right, so now there's the connection of populism and the COVID, how these two connect, the populism and the science. First, it started with the polarization. Polarization is a very key word in this research, because the populism will divide two sides apart. So examples of polarization that we had right in the first year of the pandemic. What is really important, you remember, I guess you all remember, keep the commerce open, close the commerce. Keep the schools open. No, you need to close because definitely everybody's gonna die. We need to go to the quarantine. No, we can't go to the quarantine because we will have an economic crisis and then people will die, we will starve. So this was one big example of the polarization that happened in the first year of the pandemic. I'm just saying some of these. There were much others, but I have no space to write it here. And then we had the viral claims. The viral claims, they're a very strong weapon. Fake news are viral claims. They were very useful in the elections in 2018. And they were very useful. They are still very useful now. So we had some populist scientists who tried to create a miracle for the pandemic right in the first 6 months. The first populist scientist here, it was Didier. He's from France. And he even created a channel on YouTube to post these viral claims. And what do you want another platform that goes more viral than YouTube? In a moment where everybody wants a solution, everybody wants the end of the pandemic, and everybody wants a miracle. So that is a moment where this populist science emerged, right? Without any concrete studies. At the time, we didn't have concrete studies to do any claim of the type. So we did not have scientific proof. And that's why it was so fast to spread fake news about the vaccination. We still have fake news about the vaccination. So you can see how strong it is, this kind of discourse. And science and scientists, they became a target of populism, because scientists, you remember of the elite that I talked about in the beginning? Scientists are in this elite, and everybody else is not. The people are on the other side of the spectrum, because they are portrayed by populist governments as arrogant, as people who will not listen other people. They are the owners of the truth. So scientists here, they are the villains. In a populist government, scientists are the villains. So they are represented as the global elite. Here we have, I brought you some examples of our president's statements about the COVID-19 in 2020. I'm only gonna use for my dissertation, I'm only gonna use data from 2020 because we're still hearing a lot of things. So I had to choose a year, and then I went, I chose 2020. So I'm gonna read some of them, all right? O brasileiro tem que ser estudado, ele não pega nada. Você vê o cara pulando em esgoto e não acontece nada com ele. Eu acho até que muita gente já foi infectada no Brasil, há poucas semanas ou meses, e ele já tem anticorpos que ajudam a não proliferar isso daí. So here, it was March of 2020. We just started back then, the pandemic, and he was making such claims without any scientific proof, all right? So in April we had, quem tem abaixo de 40 anos tem que se preocupar para não transmitir o vírus para os outros, mas para ele, para sua vida, é quase zero esse risco. Devemos sim, cada família, cuidar dos mais idosos, não pode deixar na conta do Estado. So remember what I said before about why family is so important for the government? Because of this, all right? Because of this. Devemos, sim, cada família cuidar dos seus idosos. By family, he means women, all right? I'm going to explain this later, because who are the global caretakers? Women are the caretakers. I'm going to show you some data later, but this is why family is so important, because if family takes care of their own, the state will not have to, all right? Even though it is a responsibility of the state, but the more the family does for their own, the less the state will have to do, all right? So that's why family is so important in this kind of government, all right? I'm not gonna read all of this because I think I'm taking too long, but these are very good examples so you can have a feeling of what it is, all right? Here's another quote that talks about how this system works. If you are right that the tide is turning, that public opinion is shifting away from a belief in big governments and away from the doctrine of social responsibility, then that change will tend to restore a belief in individual responsibility by strengthening the family and reestablishing its traditional role. So this is what I said before, right? So we need to restore this individual responsibility, because the more responsibility we have, the less responsibility the state will have. So they can use their resources with something else, except for the people. All right, so the family values. I'm almost done, everybody. All right, so the state fights so much to keep the family together. So everything that constitutes family is extremely worshipped in our society. So it is represented, in fact, the family providers, the father, it's a father's obligation, and consequently, women's are subordinated financial and emotional to these partners, all right? And another problem of the state is the welfare, all right? So they say, what they say, if you are divorcing, if you're going through a divorce, mom and dad, you failed as a family, because now who's gonna have to take care of this mother and her child? Me, the state. So it is a terrible thing. And this cultural pressure is constituted on everybody, not only women, women and men to grow up and constitute a family and do not rely on the state for everything. Because if this father goes away, someone will have to step up, and then it will be the state, all right? And then what happens? This financial and emotional subordination of women. Women need to stay with this partner. During the pandemics, this increased a lot. The rates of domestic violence increased a lot because women had nowhere to go. They lost their jobs. So what they were supposed to do with a child and a homeless, they had to stay with the abuser. So this is one of the ways in which these abuses appeared during the pandemic, way much before, but very strongly during the pandemic. All right, and how does all of this relate to gender? All right, so around 64 million women lost their jobs around the world in the pandemic. I did this research last year, so you can imagine how this number is now. In education, women were the responsible for their children's education, or the grandmothers who would take care of the children because the mother had to go to work. So they became the teachers and also the mother. So they incorporated many other social roles during the pandemic, which was extremely overwhelming and impacted the mental health of all of this group. There are researches that also prove an increase in medication for mental health during the first year of the pandemic. So I'm not saying this happened only to women, but mostly, all right. Violence. The domestic violence reports increased in 40%. And also women were more exposed to the virus, all right. Here there are some data. So 70% all over the world, women constitute 70% of the workers in the health area. Women constitute 85% of nurses and maids, all right, during that period. So they were almost a very large percentage of nursing. But however, last doctors were women, 45%. And women were the 85% of the caretakers from elderly people. And here are just data from the health area. But women are the ones who clean hospitals, that were very, very much in contact with the virus during the pandemic. Women, I didn't include here because these I researched later, but women have the largest percentage of autonomous workers. So many of them also lost their job. I don't know if you remember this image, but Gretchen Goldman, she was this picture went viral in 2020, and it represents very well the life of a woman who is also a researcher and a scientist. All right, so she's an environmental engineer and mother of 2 children. So they had to adapt the world with teaching, keep working, researching, and taking care of the children, all right? There are some further researches that explain as well how women in science suffered a lot during the pandemic because of these overwhelming double shifts. So they had to work with researching, with need to publish articles and need to teach, but also with kids at home. So this created a mayhem, a chaos during this period. All right, so I'm almost done. So what I plan to do next? So for my research, I will include critical discourse analysis. I didn't include here because it's too long Political discourse analysis, it's a tenet from critical discourse analysis, and they are the hows of my research. How am I going to prove everything that I've just told you? How am I going to prove grammatically, linguistically, everything that I told you? So these are the hows, okay? And I'm going to include theory on populism and gender studies. I'm going to work mostly with the president's public speech. I'm still working on this because it's too much material. The guy did so much, so I'm still working on this because I need to have a specific criteria. I know it's the man, he's the one. And I am interested in analyzing how these measures, how the measures during the first year of the pandemic, how it impacted women's lives. And that's pretty much it. It's, as I told you, it's still on baby steps. I still got a lot to figure it out. And I hope by July of this month, I will have at least 2 chapters, and I hope to have more answers. But these are some of my references. And thank you very much for your time.
Wow, girl, well done. Well done. Many questions. But I don't want to be the first one, but that's too much. I mean, I know that discourse analysis is pretty difficult. And
Very impressive.
Yeah.
I like the point that you raised about the like how keeping the families together is important for the state, because I always thought because of the church that we have this obsession of like, you know, the Catholic countries, and we have this thing of like no divorce and this and that, keeping the family together. And I never thought about through that lenses, like how interesting it is for the state to keep the family together.
Mm-hmm. They make a very good job in masking their real intentions. So if people believe it is the church, good, let's believe it's the church, because they can mask very well how this all manipulation works, and we live our entire lives conditioned to that and believing that we are failures if we don't do that. Right.
Wow. And so my first question is, how many speeches do you need to analyze in order to have like valid data to prove your point?
Good evening, Luana. I'd like to ask a question that goes to the same way of Laís. How did you select the speeches from the president? Because there are a lot of different kind of speeches. There are the lives, there are the official speeches in television. There are the talking, the little talking in the cercadinho, and the speeches sometimes are contradictory, because when they say something that went wrong and people don't like, he says, "Oh, it was just a joke. I was not talking serious." Even Pazuello appealed to that when he says, "Oh, what president said in a live was not a real presidential thing. It was a internet thing." So how did you selected your corpus that you were analyzing, and how do you analyze that contradictions, because some speeches are supposed not to be serious but are serious at the same time. When you're talking about humor, that's a very problematic, because they transit in a limit between it's for real and it's not for real. How do you deal with that?
Mm-hmm. All right, that's a very important question, Laís and Fausto. I had the idea to analyze the president's speech. Before I chose that, I was thinking about analyzing the whole government. So imagine the mess. I was thinking about analyzing the whole government, the speech from the ministers, the speech from the governors, the speech of Bolsonaro. But then I had a talk with my advisor, and okay, that's too much, maybe in your postdoc, all right? So hold your horses. And then at the same time, I think it was in June of 2020, there was a research from USP, from a group that analyzes these courses also, from USP, and they, I don't know if you remember this research, but they did a timeline of the president's speech from March, early March until December of 2020. And then that was it. You know, they did all the work for me. I didn't have to go and select what was official, what was not official. So in that timeline, they could, they wrote what was going on. So they in the research, they were trying to prove that what was happening in 2020 was a genocide plan. And then by trying to prove that, they took the measures. For example, in March, the law Tal was sanctioned. In April, something foi vetado. And then a speech of Bolsonaro. So the job was done. And then my advisor and I, we decided to use this as a support, because then it would be too difficult for me to select random speeches, because then it would be like, I don't like what he says here, so I'm going to choose this to analyze. Then I would be biased, and I can't be biased. So we thought it would be safer for my research to use that. But today, the discourse studies, they have evolved a lot, and we don't need only official discourses to analyze anymore. There are some analysts that are using Twitter posts to analyze. They are analyzing even the comments and the retweets and the likes and in the post as a kind of language. This wasn't used in the beginning of critical discourse analysis. We were very worried to not be called biased, because we were called the mimizentos, who only analyze what they want. So, but today this changed. And then now even comments on the videos on YouTube, comments on Bolsonaro's pages, likes, the number of likes, they are also used as corpus. I'm not doing that, I'm not analyzing that, but there are some other analysts who are using this as corpus to analyze.
This is a real stalker job.
Yes, we are obsessed.
Officially stalker.
Yes, it is a team of stalkers and obsessed.
Yeah. So my other question is also related to these criteria to which discourse to choose, but now you answered already. But now in terms of grammar, and there was another thing that you also mentioned. But in terms of grammar, what do you look for? Is there a certain structure that you're looking for in order to categorize as something or this or that?
Yes. There is the grammar itself that we analyzed with a specific framework. It is called systemic functional linguistics. It was developed by Halliday in '85, first developed. And this grammar we used as something to not be called a bunch of theory. So we use systemic functional. The systemic functional linguistics analyzes authors, agents, and receptors of a specific action. So it's like our Portuguese, sujeito, predicado. It's very similar. It's very similar to that. But a very important element are the verbs. We look at the verbs. The verbs, they are separated into mental. Mental verbs is like, eu sei. Saber é verbo mental. A sayer, for example, verbo que é verbal. No caso, dizer, falar, é verbal.
Stated então, verbs? Stated.
Eles chamam de verbal action, mental action, concrete actions. Concrete are the verbs of action. Fazer is a concrete action. Prometer não é. Prometer é mental. Então, the mental and the verbal verbs, we call them processes, but the mental processes and the verbal processes, they are less likely to happen. So if a politician uses too much mental and verbal processes, it doesn't have too much credibility. But on the other hand, if the politician uses more concrete processes, that action processes, it is stronger in terms of the possibility that it will happen in the future. And also another part of the grammar is the representation of, there are two, representations of social actors and representation of social action. In my master's, I used the representation of social actors because I wanted to see how women were represented in the political programs. So I wanted to see if they were represented as, for example, their names or their surname or the partner's surname, or as mothers, sisters, daughters. If this is all pregnant. Pregnant is a way of representing. You're not calling a person. You are defining a person because of her body, because she's carrying another person. So this is all kinds of categories. But in my doctorate, I'm going to look at the representation of social action because I want to know how serious these actions are for real. Like there's a probability of actions to happen or not, according to the theory. So I'm going to ground my framework in the representation of social action, mostly. Because I even don't have space to analyze actors and actions, so I decided to stay with the actions for my dissertation here. I hope I'm making myself clear. It's I'm not talking too much.
But in the other hand, you're clarifying. But on the other hand, it's raising other questions. So when you analyze those verbs, you're saying that they can like promote an action in the people who listen to the talks, to the speeches. So they are intended in a certain way to provoke an action on people, so to influence or to push the population to one side or the other.
Yes, exactly. They have these strong power, but of course, people don't pay attention which kind of verb this politician is using. We don't care what he's saying, but we as researchers, we look at these verbs to see in which ways this is a manipulation or not.
Can you give an example, please? Sorry. Can you give an example of a very strong one or a popular one that everybody knows but nobody pays attention to?
All right. Combater. Combater is very, very famous. Combater. Combater é uma coisa que... Como é que eu vou combater o racismo? Como é que eu vou combater o machismo? Vou combater com o quê? O que é? Se é um símbolo, se não é nenhuma coisa que eu consigo pegar com a mão, como é que eu vou combater? Então, combater dá um senso muito forte de que eu vou fazer alguma coisa, mas ao mesmo tempo eu não estou te dizendo como, você não faz a menor ideia de como é que eu vou fazer isso. Então, por exemplo, in my master thesis, combater was everywhere. Combat crime, combat domestic violence, combat a bunch of things. But how? Okay, you're going to combat. But how? They don't say in any ways. They don't say how they're going to combat, which is different. I'm going to give another example. If I say I'm going to build a house for women who are victims of domestic violence in Videira. This is concrete, ok? Eu vou construir uma casa. Aqui, aonde? Aqui em Videira. Para quem? Para mulheres que são vítimas de violência. Isso é concreto. Agora, combater a violência doméstica não é concreto. Como é que eu vou fazer isso? Quem que é as pessoas? Eu vou combater quem? Eu vou combater o homem? Como é que eu vou combater o homem? Entende? É muito complexo, muito sutil, é sutil demais e é muito fácil de manipular.
Yeah, so it's like an empty action, so it gives you a false sense of action actually, that yeah, I'm going to pay attention to that too.
Yeah. Once we a very famous phrase in critical discourse analysis is make the familiar strange. So everything that is familiar to us, we needed to make it strange. Because we needed to look with a different perspective, with a different eye, because it is so familiar that nobody will ever question. So that's what critical analysts do. We make the familiar strange. So once you start paying attention, everything. You criticize, you look critically at everything. So it's very strange. My friends, they used to joke with me about it. Like, you're not analyzing me now, right? You're not analyzing what I'm texting you. They were like, no, I'm not analyzing you, but I know if you're lying, you know. It's very yes, it's possible. It's
human lie detector, seriously. So teach us a technique. Teach us a technique right here, right now.
It's very funny, you know. I'm gonna give an example. I had a professor during my master's. He was one of the creators of forensic linguistics. Forensic linguistics emerged in the 50s, in the 60s. He's a very old man. He's a brilliant professor. Yeah, he's old, but he's brilliant. And he's one of the first forensic linguistics. And he worked in courts. He went to courts. And for example, there is a homicide, okay? And then we have a text message that proves that. And then he would take the text message and say, okay, this is not Luana who wrote this. It was someone else who wrote this because of this and this and that. Luana, for the other messages I read from Luana, she doesn't write VC. She writes você all the time. And here she wrote VC. It's not Luana, it's not her. Or he can say, if something is plagiarism. Plagiarism is a very common thing in forensic linguistics. To analyze whether something is plagiarism or not, all right? So these are some examples because we can identify patterns. I have a recommendation. If you want to watch, there's a series on Netflix about this, about forensic linguistics, and my professor helped to do the series on Netflix. The name is the Unabomber. The Unabomber is a real story that happened in the US in the 50s, 70s with a serial killer, the Unabomber. And it was the first time in history that the FBI used forensic linguistics to solve a crime. And it's amazing. If you watch the series, you will know what I'm saying about the patterns. So you can find a criminal with language. If you pay attention to how this person writes, you can identify a criminal. It's amazing. It's an amazing. I am passionate about the series, and I recommend to everyone because that's what I do, and I love that, and it's amazing. It's fantastic.
Yeah, there is a question for you in the chat.
Yes, today, Liz, yes, today in the world we live in, yes. But for example, there were some contexts where left-wing politicians were populists and they were not so badly seen as the others. Chavez was one of them. Stalin was one of them. Hitler was one of them. So we have a lot of figures, big important figures who we don't imagine, but they were populists, you know. So, but in the area today, in the field today, it's considered a bad thing because of the manipulation and the polarization. All right, if it wasn't for the polarization, it wouldn't be so bad. But the polarization tends to put one side against the other all the time. It's the story of us versus them, always. So that's the problem with populism, the biggest problem today. And it's very unlikely that we are going to solve this one day. It's very unlikely because we don't have full positioning from the right or the left. We are both very segregated, and it's very unlikely that we will find a solution for this.
After all, after your research, what do you expect about this about the election this year? Because we have a critical scenario, I don't know, and we have now a little big war. So I think the bad times don't over. So what do you expect about talking about Brazil, obviously? So
all right, that's the question I was afraid to get, but I imagine it would appear.
I have afraid about the answer, so
yeah. So I've been discussing this in my group of all the discourse analysts. We've been discussing this since last year. What's happening? What's happening? You know, and I've been talking with my friends inside the political parties, and there is, I would say, there is a big fear and a big hope in the same exact level, because we tend to mimic what happens in the States in a political life in the past years, but it is very uncertain. All right, because in the same way that we have the Bolsonaro voters who regretted deeply voting for him and they have admitted in these years, in these past years, they admitted, and they are willing to not go for the same choice. We have the ones who are against the vaccination, who are against the use of masks, who were always against of closing things. So it is very uncertain. But we need a figure, remember the charismatic figure, we need someone as strong as, and who is that person in Brazil today, right? We need someone like that. But Leandro, I have a hope. I would say that I hope very, very much that the scenario changes this year. And I think it will. I think it will change, but I'm not sure which spectrum we are going, because all this wave of the central makes me afraid. I don't believe in center. All right. So we have center left and center right, but I don't believe in center, and I don't believe they can coexist, being center and left and right. So that's why I am extremely afraid and hopeful at the same time.
Well, a fact is the populism is in fashion. So
yeah.
For the right way, the left way. So
it is everywhere. Really,
yeah.
Really everywhere. It's popular. Populism is popular.
Lulismo or Bolsonarismo, we are fucked.
Yeah, we're doomed. Yeah. One of the authors. Sorry, Lazy, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say one of the authors that I read about populism, he's one of the fathers of the studies is Ernesto Laclau. He is Argentinian, if I'm not mistaken, and he's a philosopher and a political scientist. So it's extremely difficult to read his text. I always have to read the 2 PDFs to read the one chapter of his book. It's extremely difficult. But there is one chapter that the name is The Impossibility of Society. So if Laclau doesn't have a hope, who are we, right? So, and then that's the impossibility of society. He means this, we can't get into an agreement. We can't. It's impossible for us as society to get into an agreement.
Well, I have a final question. I promise this is the last one. But before that, I would like to acknowledge, Marco Silva, look at you, man. In an event from Idea.
Special guest.
Yeah. No, Luana, this is something, because this is the person who hardly ever would appear and show up on an event. Huh?
Nice. Welcome, Marcos.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just watching.
Uh-huh.
Can I just point out the view? Can I just point out the flipping massive window?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes. Massive.
Is that a gray goose behind you? That's all I want to know.
Yes, definitely it is.
That's a gray goose, isn't it?
That's a bar right behind him.
The plate or the drinks?
You fucking made it. You fucking made it. That's it. You got freaking gray goose behind you. Oh, I am so freaking jealous right now. All right. You may carry on, Luana.
Come on.
And today is a beautiful day.
Yeah.
It's not normal day here in Vancouver. Normally it's raining or snowing, but today is the sunny day. I think it's because of that I'm here to talk to everybody.
Nice. So my last question is, so you analyze the what's behind him. That's it, Lisa. That's a bottle of vodka. Yeah, we know that.
Yeah. It's vodka, whiskey, and an Asian drink. I don't remember the name because I think it's in Japanese.
Show me the whiskey. Show me the whiskey. Oh, you don't have soju. Oh my God, it's got soju.
That's soju.
You have soju. Which one? Apple? Damn.
No, it's grapefruit.
Grapefruit. What whiskey do you have?
I have gin.
I don't like gin. Moving on. Whiskey.
Yeah. It's so cheaper here. And the best.
Just to disturb us. Look at
the size. Look at the size.
Vodka.
In Salvador, we call it litrão.
Yeah, it's like that, but it's more than 1 liter.
That's
And
the
I
first thing I
have
saw.
Sure.
A Jack Daniels, but it's a apple Jack Daniels.
Oh,
It's very good.
It's
Had
not
never
Android,
seen
it's
that.
Apple.
Yeah.
It's very
Nerd
good.
joke.
Okay. The Grey Goose is the first thing I clocked when you came
The
in.
plant is not
Like-
marijuana, okay? It's not marijuana. It's a normal plant, okay?
It's a alfazema.
Yeah.
It's kind
It's
of
a fake plant.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so
Oh,
that took a
dear.
turn.
Oh man,
I'm messing everything in here. Sorry.
No, we love it. We love it. Yeah, but you are a disturber. So
It's not my fault.
no, it was Ali. Ali, she was the one who started that. Okay, Luana, you were analyzing the leader's speech, the leader's discourse, but okay, it's very important. And how about the people who are influenced by the discourse? I mean, is there any specific characteristic by the people who let themselves, okay, everything is very well masked, hidden in the words, but is there any characteristic of the population that would be more inclined to be manipulated like this?
Yeah, there are several ways we can observe this. Today, I think I would say the strongest way we can see is through the internet manifestations. So this happens through creation of groups on Facebook. I don't know if you remember. In 2018, it was a group on Facebook. I think there were Mulheres contra Bolsonaro, and then it was created. This group was hacked. The owner, the creator of the group, was beaten in front of her house for a Bolsonaristas group. So they found the girl and they went through her house and they beated her, and they changed it. They hacked Mulheres contra Bolsonaro a Mulheres com Bolsonaro. And this is one big example of how this impassioned speech motivates people to be angry. So it motivates people in a very furious way. I'm not saying that the left doesn't do that, all right? So the man was stabbed. That is one example of this rage too, all right? But internet today is one of the best ways we can see that, and that's why the users' comments are also being used as corpus today because of this, to analyze the reactions. So today there are some analysts who they literally go to, for example, Bolsonaro's Facebook page. They go in a post. It can be a polemic post. They read all the comments and they analyze grammatically the comments. Like, so this comment is being cursive in this way, and this comment has 282 likes, and the other has 10. All right. So that's why I said that today number of likes is something that is being analyzed. So this internet is today is how we can better analyze. Back then, in the old politics, it was much more difficult to see the public's reaction towards what was happening. So the politicians, for example, only had the feedback through letters or riots, for example. Today, no, today is much easier. All right, so we can attack, we can offend, we can find out a person's address, everything online. So today it's much easier. But analyzing the public is painful because we see what we see by analyzing the public's discourse. We see the minority groups defending the oppressor. That's what we find when we go to the population. We see a poor person who is suffering from that government defending the government, you know. So that's what we see. So I think, okay, I'm analyzing the oppressor here, but I still choose to analyze his discourse, than the discourse of the oppressed, who have no idea in how many ways they are being oppressed today. But there are some analysts who work with this.
Yeah, it's a structural problem, as Susan Maida says.
Yeah, it makes us sick. I felt sick many times in my master's, and in my doctorals. It's the same, pretty much the same. But it's something we have to do, right? Someone has to do. Probably, yeah. Maybe I will go to jail, I don't know, at the end of my defense, if someone reads it. But we still got a right. And we want, what we don't want is to write and leave it, you know, and forget it. So today, recently, the analysts, the discourse analysts, they are proposing pedagogical solutions in all of the theses, in all of the dissertations. We are proposing pedagogical solutions. Okay, so we found the problem, we see how it works. So how can we do something in education? Because that's the only way, you know, it's through education and the pedagogical implications. So we are always suggesting something. In the last chapter, we suggest something, how this situation can be improved.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's a deep topic.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
I hope I didn't let anyone confused. It's complex. It's still in progress. And by next year, I hope to have the results to tell you. But it's still happening.
As I say to Malachias, you will change the world. We not. We only do bugs. Only bugs.
I hope. So thank you everybody for your time tonight. It was very nice hearing from you, your questions. Every time I like presenting to different people, because I always have some questionings. I always leave with something on my mind, or idea to write more, idea to research more. So thank you very much for listening and being here today. It meant the world to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. It's important to have the academy closer to the people, because there are many things being researched and developed, and we have no access to that. And having someone in the front doing the research, explaining to us, you know, what's going on. And now it's even better to know that you guys are starting to give some pedagogical solutions, because before, no, it was just raising questions, but actions and results, it was more difficult.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
We're going to send the link. And yes, I'm going to post. I'm going to send some prints, take some print screens to post. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Bye, guys. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you guys.
Ellie, Lazy, would you like to talk with people?
Sure.
I want the Grey Goose. That's what I'm looking at. Grey Goose.
Malaquias! Malaquias está aí só escondido. Deixa eu parar de gravar.